Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Lorna Titley. We at Quaynote Communications are delighted to welcome you to today's webinar. So our panel today provides an update on ports, yachts and travel restrictions. Moderating the discussion today is Alison Pacello, partner at Fenwick & Fenwick. We'll be taking questions towards the end of the webinar, so if you wish to send in some questions for the panel, then please do so, and we'll try and get to you and answer your questions. I'm shortly going to hand over to Alison. We will have a recording of this session available after the webinar, so please bear with us while we get speakers' permissions and we send you the recording in due course. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed today's session. I'm going to hand over now to Alison Pacello at Fenwick & Fenwick. Thank you very much indeed. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you very much, Lorna. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, Quaynote, again for organizing this webinar. I think today is our fourth webinar from the series, and I think it's the one that has the greatest number of delegates. So it's great that we have this response. So thank you so much. I think the interest is also because things are finally moving and shaking, and we're finally seeing some positive developments in different member states. And of course, we're close to the season. We've actually started the season. So we are here to give you a very convenient update and snapshot of what's happening in the various jurisdictions that we work from, and also hopefully have some time to answer some of your questions. I don't think the panel requires further introduction. So there's Maya Ban from NYS Yachting in Croatia. We have Jennifer from Oceda from Greece, Jean-Philippe, who will be covering the situation in France, Ezio Vanucci, Mus Roland Viareggio, and Janet Xanthopoulos from Monaco. So, and Miguel, who hasn't put on his camera yet, from.
I don't know what happened with the video.
It's okay.
Now,
oh, here you are.
Now, perfect. Hello,
so
everyone.
Miguel from Albors Galliano, who will be covering Spain. So as you see, we have quite a lot of people on the webinar. So let's start without further ado. And the main point we wanted to cover, as the title of the series of webinars reflects, is travel restrictions of yachts and an update on the situation, not just of entry of yachts, but also entry of crew, guests, and what the position with chartering is. So perhaps we can start with Maya. Maya, would you like to give us an overview of Croatia? I'm not going to ask you all to be very brief, please, so we can sort of have time to cover everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison, for introduction. Hello to everybody once again, and thank you for showing interest in being part of this webinar. So regarding Croatia, luckily again, things are positive. Season has slowly but surely started, which means at the moment we have no restrictions when it comes to yachts or cruise ships coming to Croatia. Situation with COVID is positive. It's moving in a good direction. People are getting vaccinated. However, of course, we still have to follow all the measures. For people who haven't been on our previous webinar, if I can just repeat, the professional crew, which is basically a crew with Siemens books and the contracts of employment, are considered professional crew, and they are not required as such PCR tests when coming to Croatia, unless maybe they're coming from the third country by plane. So before you send your crew over, please check with your local agent or contact that you're using. Regarding the guests and the owners, again, same as previous years, a charter contract is sufficient, ownership of the yacht is sufficient. There is definitely now a tier of, regarding PCR from EU green zone, no restrictions from the red zone, PCR test or rapid antigen test is accepted. Of course, people who are vaccinated or suffered from COVID before are not required. Children under 7 years are not required, but everyone else traveling from third countries will be required a PCR test. Unfortunately, we still have a couple of countries like Brazil, India, Zanzibar, and South Africa, who besides PCR tests will still need a quarantine for 14 days, which can be reduced to 7 days if after 7 days the test is done in Croatia and it's negative. So please be aware of that. We've been having inquiries about Brazilian travelers. 14 days quarantine is still in place. A good thing maybe for charter brokers who are having boats heading this way is that also a self-COVID test kit will be available in Croatia in a couple of days. So the crew could also maybe use that as a pre-charter measure for testing themselves. The government confirmed that if PCR tests will be done in Croatia before departure, it will be probably also sponsored partially by Croatian government. And good news regarding the traveling from America. Today, the news came out that Delta also did 4 flights now announced from New York, JFK, Newark, direct flights to Dubrovnik, together with American Airlines. So things are positive, and I hope I can answer any other questions later on.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you,
Jennifer, Greece, you were telling us how hectic it's getting.
We're busy, we're happy. Yachting opened on, well, first, hello everyone. Thanks very much for taking part. Greece is open as of Friday. We're busy because now everyone's sort of putting their plans in place. Right now, there are some restrictions. The 2 main ones to keep in mind: yachts can arrive in Greece from any port without a restriction on where they're coming from, except for Turkey and Albania, where if they come in from Turkey and Albania, they can only have a crew on board. That's an important one to keep in mind, because that means that yachts that intended to start and then charters in Albania or Turkey won't be able to do so. And if they're coming in from Albania and Turkey, they can go to only specific ports. In the case of Turkey, it's Kavala, Mytilene, Chios, Samos, Kos, and Rhodes. And from Albania, it's Corfu, Preveza, and Igoumenitsa. To enter Greece, crew members must either be vaccinated or in possession of a negative PCR test, dated no longer than 72 hours from arrival. Or a certificate of recovery, as long as it's issued 2 to 9 months prior to infection, from the date of infection. Passengers can arrive as guests on board, or they can fly into Greece if they're nationals of, it's a bit of a long list, but I'll go through it. It's the EU, Australia, North Macedonia, the Emirates, USA, Britain, Israel, Canada, Belarus, Bahrain, New Zealand, South Korea, Qatar, China, Kuwait, Ukraine, Rwanda, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, Singapore, Thailand, and all Schengen countries. Other nationals with EU residence permits can also come, or if their spouses are EU citizens. Again, such passengers must either have a negative PCR test or a certificate of recovery, or evidence that they've been vaccinated. There's some, bottom line, if you're going to come to Greece, check in with your agent and just check, what
yes,
language.
I think
cross-reference with your passport that the name's correct, but all of that's obvious. The one point to take away is you must make sure your agent has these documents at maximum 6 hours before you arrive. They have to be with the port authorities. Other than that, in the event passengers do arrive on board and they're tested as COVID positive, or sorry, they arrive without a test result, then they have to be tested until they get a negative result. They can't leave the boat, and if it's positive, they have to self-isolate for at least 10 days. We're open, we're busy, and it seems people want to come. That's the plan. Charter licenses are buzzing right now. They're trying to get them in place in time for the season. So again, yachting's open.
That sounds marvelous. Jean-Philippe, France?
Yes, thanks everyone. Thanks for attending. In France, it's an extremely auspicious day today because finally the bars have reopened today. joking aside, the lockdown is easing gradually up until 30th of June. Every 15 days, we will have a later curfew going from 7 to 9 to 11, and then with no curfew on 30th of June. So there will be a possibility to enjoy France as it used to be. Regarding the restrictions on entry, the rule is quite simple. You must have a PCR test dated no later than 72 hours prior to arriving in France. Of course, it must show that you're clear of infections. There is a possibility to enter from other EU or Schengen countries, but there is no possibility to enter from non-Schengen countries unless you have a mandatory and serious reason to do so. So there is no leisure activity. For crew members, this is met because it is part of their professional activity, so they can enter. There is no need to provide this mandatory reason for individuals coming from Australia, South Korea, Israel, Japan, New Zealand, UK, or Singapore, but they will still need to do a 7-day isolation. For people coming in from COVID hotspots like Brazil or South Africa, then you need to self-isolate for 10 days if you're coming in. So for the crew, there is this possibility to come in because they're considered as key workers now in France, so they can come and go with that 72-hour PCR test that they must present or do so on arrival and be isolated up until the results come in. There is also a discussion about the sanitary pass, the vaccine passport that has been voted recently in France. It's going through Parliament slowly, and apparently it will be made mandatory only to attend meetings of more than 1,000 people. It will not be required to enter France or to circulate in France or to do things related to daily life, like going to a restaurant or whatever. It's only
but it's
to
being
attend concerts and big events.
Is it being, because it's interesting that Maya, I mean, this is a subject we were intending to touch upon, but might as well, you know, pick it now. Maya and Jennifer mentioned that vaccination certificates or proof of vaccination is being accepted instead of a PCR test, if I understood correctly, on entry into your countries. Is it the same in France, Jean-Philippe?
Not at this stage. You still need the PCR test. The vaccine pass will allow you to log in the results of your vaccine or your PCR test that you can then present to enter. I won't make any jokes regarding the vaccination campaign in France. Everyone knows how it's going, but it's been picking up recently. So at least we should be able to have everyone vaccinated by the time the lockdown is truly eased. But this vaccine pass normally should not affect daily life. That is what the government has been telling for the past couple of days.
Understood. Thank you, Jean-Philippe. Janet, by neighbors, let's move with neighborhoods. So can you tell us what's happening in Monaco? You're muted, Jennifer. Jennifer, you're muted. Sorry, Janet. Janet, I'm getting confused.
Oh, come on.
No, I know. It's unforgivable.
Well,
Janet,
hello, first.
yeah, tell us what's happening.
Jean-Philippe said it all. So yeah, on my side, same as France, actually, the restrictions are getting easier and easier. Probably normal life will be back in June. For now, since Monday, the curfew is between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. The bar, the shops, the restaurants, even the casino is open now. The only thing, we have still got restrictions for bar and restaurants. Restaurants are also opening the evening now, and bars as well. I mean, I had my first coffee like 2 days ago, so this was really great. But it's just the restrictions are, it's reserved for Monaco residents, Monaco workers, and people who can demonstrate that they have a booking in a hotel in Monaco for now. And at least until the 31st of May. Swimming pools, sports centers are open. It's just hammam and swimming pool. So in the hotels, it's still not possible to use them. This is on the let's say the general measures. Then on the yachting side, are we touching yachting side now or navigation?
Yes,
or
yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. As in France, they announced since Monday that if you remember, prior we had some restrictions for yachts, non-EU flag arriving from non-Schengen areas. Since Monday, all these restrictions are lifted, which is really great news. So yachts, EU flag, non-EU flags coming from Schengen areas, non-Schengen areas now can come. No restrictions anymore, no required to have a berth, a booking, or a contract with the yard, even though it's, of course, highly recommended. What is really required, though, is still the declaration of maritime health to be provided 48 hours prior to arrival. PCR test will be required for the crew and for the guest 72 hours prior to arrival. If this cannot be provided, it will be quarantine for the passengers and for the crew members. You will do the PCR test in Monaco. You will stay on board until a negative test is provided. Yeah, and I think that's, so these are the latest. So let's say that for navigation now is free. So you can freely navigate. The only thing is a maritime declaration of health at arrival and prior to departure, and PCR test. Yeah, we don't have yet, as Jean-Philippe said, if you can prove that you have been vaccinated, you still need to do your PCR test. The only ways you can avoid having your PCR test is, let's say you have already joined actually France, and you're coming from the Var or from the Maritime Alps, and you come in Monaco for less than 24 hours, then it's not required that you provide a PCR test. Otherwise, it's required.
Okay. Thank
so
you for that.
Much simpler than before.
Yeah, it sounds much better than it was before. I mean, not just for Monaco, but for all the countries we're touching so far. Miguel, would you like to give us a quick overview of Spain?
Sorry, yes, thank you very much, Alison. Thank you everybody for attending. In Spain, it's also, as in the rest of the countries, the situation is improving quite a lot in the last weeks, months. There is no port restrictions at all. There is no yacht restrictions at all. And until recently, there was a limit in the capacity of the yachts based on the certified guests that can be on board. It was limited to 75%, etc. But now it have disappeared in the Balearic Islands since May the 9th. So it have been completely removed. Not even in Barcelona, there are no restrictions anymore. So things are going well. The main issue that we have is, I think that the same of all countries represented, except for Croatia, which is outside of the Schengen area. And it's the limitation of non-essential trips from outside of Schengen to the Schengen countries, as could be Malta, France, Spain, Greece, Italy, etc. So this is enforced until May 31st, as you all know, and we'll see what happens after, since next June the 1st, probably will be relaxed. There are also some exemptions to travelers coming for non-essential trips to the EU or to the Schengen area, as I have said before also. Australia, Israel, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, China, etc. There are some exemptions, but for example, the main charter clients that could be in most of the occasions, Russian, US citizens, etc., are not still open. We hope that since June 1st will be. And well, regarding the other more formal matters to fulfill, the health declarations must be in place when arriving. 24 hours before is enough. PCR tests are required even within the EU, 72 hours prior to arrival. There is no still in place in Spain an exemption expressly determined for people who have received vaccination, which is a bit ridiculous that they have to contribute also PCR tests, but it's a matter of legal implementation. So they will be exempt, but they are working on that. And there is no more, for sure. Crew coming from non-EU, from non-Schengen countries can enter as work is an essential trip for them. They need also PCR tests, and there is no much more about that. There are some countries also which travelers must keep quarantine, as you have said before in other countries, South Africa, India, Brazil, etc., which even being an essential trip must keep quarantine for 10 days. And there's not much more. It's constantly improving, but not absolutely open in relation to travel restrictions. No problem with port and yachts.
Thank you, Miguel. Yeah. Ezio, last but not least, Italy.
Good afternoon to all. The situation in Italy for sure is better than after our latest seminar. The navigation is free. The ports are all open. There are not restrictions for the movement between the region, Italian region. There are still in place the color depending of the situation region by region, but today all the Italian region are with the yellow color. This means that is allow any kind of business activities, including a charter. So there are not any restriction to perform charter activities in Italian waters, and also starting a charter from Italian port. Vessel coming from outside Italy is allowed to enter in any Italian port. The only restriction is to deposit to the health authorities an electronic form that could be shared with the Italian agent of the vessel. This kind of health declaration to be sent by email have to be deposited 24 hours, at least 24 hours before arrive in the Italian port. Regarding restriction to arrive in Italy by plane or by vessel is only for Brazil, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, India. For all the other EU countries is enough a negative PCR test executed 48 hours before enter in Italy, and a similar restriction is also for people coming from US and other non-EU countries. I think that there is not any further restriction in place today, and so I think that is clear, is simple now to cruise in Italian waters.
Thank you very much, Ezio. So I think it's my turn now to just give a very quick overview of Malta. And the situation here is pretty good. The bottom line is that the vaccination program has really picked up a tremendous speed. And I was reading this morning that by today, 70% of the population would have received at least the first vaccine. So that is quite a huge achievement in a short period of time. In fact, we've now open vaccinations for people over 15 years of age, sorry, over 16 years of age can apply. So that's pretty good. The plan of the government is to, on the 24th May, to open. Restaurants open up until midnight. At the moment, they're open until 5 o'clock. And June 1st is the target date for the opening of tourism officially. So we will see that there will be easing of restrictions also on flights and on people coming in from different jurisdictions. So yes, June 1st is really the cutoff date where we're expecting more updates. As of today, no country is on the green list, so anyone coming in needs a PCR test. So there is an amber list where countries would be expected to, people flying in from those countries is expected to have a COVID test carried out within 72 hours of boarding. If not, there is a quarantine period. And there's a whole list, I'm not going to read it out, but all the countries on the call are there. So that's good. You can come and visit us. All other countries which are not on the amber list would be on the red list. And therefore, of course, no travel is allowed from there unless there is a quarantine period. What is of a lot of interest at the moment is this green passport or vaccine passport. I saw a comment, Lorna, I think, whereby somebody mentioned that the Commission is expected to make an announcement. I know that in principle it has been approved by member states, so we are expecting further approvals. It's already, some of my colleagues have mentioned that vaccination is being considered as an entry approval on entry already without formalities in place. What's of interest is that in Malta we already put up the legislation. So on the 30th of April, a legal notice was passed which sets up the legal framework to have this COVID passport. And it would allow the processing of personal data in preparation of the introduction of COVID passports by the authorities. And I think it's quite clear that this is the way we're going to go, to allow free movement and to allow people to be able to travel more freely without the requirements of swabbing on arrival before departure. I mean, obviously it's doable, but once vaccination is in place, then that will make things much easier. So I know there were a number of questions, so perhaps contrary to what we usually do, Lorna, perhaps we can take them now to close off this part of the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different questions here. I know that Maya has answered a couple of those already that pertain to Croatia, so she's been extra diligent, so thank you for that, Maya. But we do, for instance, have a question about the USA and Canada. This one I think is for Ezio. And can the people from USA and Canada travel to Italy without quarantine? And if not, are the COVID-free flights still running, which means that those flying in from USA or Canada do not have to quarantine on arrival in Italy? I don't know if that's something you can answer there, Ezio.
Yeah, for sure. I confirm that the COVID tested fly allow to avoid the quarantine in Italy at the condition that you can prove that this kind of flight is a COVID tested flight. And the second, that a negative PCR at least has been performed 48 hours before the embarkation. So it's possible, I confirm, to avoid the quarantine.
Excellent, thank you. And there's another question here, which is really for all the panelists, I think. So people are asking, someone here is asking about Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and Mexico. Are guests from those countries allowed into Greece, France, Italy, and Spain? So okay. Jennifer, Jean-Philippe, Miguel, if you've got any thoughts on that. Guests from Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and Mexico.
In France, I understand it's 10 days quarantine.
Yes, but you still need a mandatory reason to attend, and I don't think getting on board a yacht will be considered a mandatory reason. So for crew members, yes, but for individuals, I think they have to wait until about end of June when the borders will reopen.
Oh, you need to unmute, Miguel.
Sorry, in Spain is exactly the same as commented by Jean-Philippe. In principle, for crew, it would be possible as it is an essential trip for them, but not for the others. And in relation to some countries mentioned, and South Africa, Brazil, etc., it is a mandatory quarantine until 31st of May. After June the 1st, we still don't know what will happen.
And in Greece, it's the same. Crew is fine, but passengers must have a very specific reason for coming. And yes, chartering a yacht isn't one of them. And if they do come, they have to quarantine. So we're still waiting. And I think generally the point is that today this is the position, but with Indian strains, with this and that, we should all keep on top of it because things can change from day to day on which countries can come in or not.
Okay, excellent. And Ezio, I don't think we've heard from you on this. Anything to add about Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Mexico?
No, I think that is the same also in Italy. The restrictions are the same also in Italy.
Okay.
The only clarification that we have received is for US, Canada, Japan, where with this COVID tested flight that we have received confirmation that arrive in Naples, Venice, Milano, and Rome is possible to avoid the quarantine, but I don't think that includes this country.
Okay, excellent. And finally, I think just another quick question for you, Miguel. Shall we expect Spain to reopen to UK travellers on the 1st of June?
Well, it could be, but nowadays we cannot assure. It's just 11 days until the 1st of June. I'm sure that before the 1st of June, we will know what will happen on the 1st of June. So we will know approximately 1 week in advance because things are moving. And the interest is absolutely reciprocal to open the travel restrictions in the UK and in Spain for UK residents. Is absolutely a priority for Spain, especially for the Balearic Islands. So if it is open and there is being a lot of pressure on that, will be open for generical tourists and also for charter tourists. So for charters, there will be no exemption. So I hopefully it will be open on the 1st of June. But nowadays we are in the traffic light of the UK. We are in orange light. So we still don't know if we are going up or down. Hopefully up.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for your questions. Please keep them coming in. We'll be taking more questions later on. Interestingly, Duncan Surridge has said that he has, I believe he has an update on COVID entry restrictions in Tunisia. So I'm asking him to share a link or any information he has with everyone about that. So back over to you, Alison.
Thank you, Lorna, and thank you for all the questions. So I think we can now move on to, well, we've already touched on this, but I think the delegates who are following us would be interested to know what is happening in the sense of what's keeping us busy and what activities we are seeing. I mean, clearly things have moved geographically and things are moving with regard to restrictions. But what is the state of the market right now? What trends are we seeing? And what predictions do we have? I mean, clearly from reading all the industry publications at the moment, it is clear that the end of last year and beginning of this year has been one of the busiest. It's clear that owners have taken the leap and decided to enter the market because, of course, yachting offers such a safe haven. And this is translating into keeping our service providers busy and of course in dealing even with added stress now in light of the lifting of COVID restrictions. So it's of course welcome stress, but it means that the industry has reacted very well. And I just wanted to hear from you as to what your predictions are. I mean, we're not even in June yet, we're still early on. What's keeping you busy? Miguel?
Thank you, Alison. The truth is that we are really amazed in Spain, because the amount of work and the workload is tremendous. There is a lot of movement in buying, in new builds, in second hand. We do not have the crystal ball, and we do not know exactly which are the reasons. But to be honest, talking with owners, representatives, shipyards, it seems that probably the kind of crisis we are suffering, which is not a financial crisis, the money was there and continues to be there. Maybe this kind of crisis shows people how short is life, and if they want to spend the money, do it soon. In addition to that, a yacht is a safe and secure holiday. So all these elements together probably makes the acquisition of yachts and the industry moving very, very fast. In relation, always taking into account that all transactions are being done basically with the MOA, with the MIBA-MOA agreement, and expanding the force majeure clause, with some details with COVID, if there is an outbreak, if there is a curfew, if there is some issue that impedes, when time is of essence, impedes that people signs the contracts or travel, etc., this would be automatically delayed. This is for legal certainty, basically. And in the charter market is quite the same, but we have already talked about the travel restrictions, and people want to go on holiday, but when the clients are from outside the Schengen area, they are more cautelous and more prudent in order to book their holidays, although most of them are doing with the standard COVID clause that they are sure to recover the money if they cannot finally charter the yacht.
Thank you. Ezio, what's happening in Italy? Are you seeing, you have so many yachts there. How's the purchase market going?
The situation in Italy is it's very interesting, and I think that this year will be one of the best year. The shipyard for new construction increase day by day. The market for second-hand yacht is very attractive, very busy. The shipyard dedicated to refit has a lot of jobs. So I think that at the end of the story, this COVID changed the mentalities of the people in terms of what can have with the vessel, what is the approach to travel, okay, and to have tourism with the vessel, and all these help our market. So I think that for sure we can only wait for a very, very good result for the year, for this year.
Are you seeing, Miguel already touched upon it, and it's one of the topics we wanted to discuss, which is legal certainty now. Obviously, this year has taught us that everything can be uncertain, things you take for granted. And we have seen from the legal perspective the introduction, of course, of clauses that take into account delays that can be caused to COVID. So are you seeing the yards and owners being more flexible on closings when it comes to delivery?
Be honest,
I think we're losing Ezio. Okay.
Try to work also during the COVID. So there are not so many problems about the delay in the new construction. So I don't think this is a daily issue today in Italy regarding delay in the delivery of the new construction, to be honest.
Okay. Jean-Philippe, any comments on the clauses you're seeing introduced in contracts? I'm talking about the sale and purchase contracts mostly. Have you seen any delays on deliveries and any particular procedures which are being introduced?
I think now the COVID clause related to force majeure has become sort of a template clause that everyone puts in. Even though the clauses sometimes are a bit poorly drafted because they refer to a COVID event or a COVID delay or whatever, which is not legally certain and which may lead to discussions down the line. Yeah. I still see that the parties seem to be more flexible in how they approach deals now, a bit more in the cooperation rather than the back and forth between lawyers that could have happened in the past, which is good. It means there's a bit more trust in the industry, and you also need to make some form of concessions in each deal to ensure that it goes through. You cannot be as hardlined as you could have been a couple of years ago, because the market is very dynamic. People will go looking for other yachts if you're a seller and you're being too hard. Or if the buyer is being too difficult, the seller can simply sell it to someone else. The market is too dynamic not to be flexible. So I think that's what we're mostly seeing, a bit less reliance on strict contracts and a bit more reliance on common sense and trying to find a good solution together in the deals is the feeling I'm getting. I also wanted to add a bit my 2 cents on the issues we're seeing more and more. The sale and purchase is dynamic, as I've said. The customs control, we're also noticing quite an increase in them, probably because customs officers have not been controlling much for the past year, and they seem to think that they now need to do a lot more control, so it's picking up. There's also this issue of the new regulations regarding to the preservation of the environment in France and Posidonia, which will probably be a hot topic over the summer because it restricts basically mooring all throughout the coastline in France for vessels of more than 20 or 24 meters, depending on the region. So I think it's under the radar for the moment, but the first controls will lead to a realization from the industry that it's a big change. And finally, we're seeing a lot more seafarer claims, which was a trend before and is now beginning to be an almost automatic issue whenever you terminate a contract. It's just, I think there is more turnover in the crew, less perspective for crews, so they go after owners a bit more frequently. So those are the major trends I'm getting, at least for the past 6 months.
Okay, Janet, anything to add there?
Well, I agree with all the comments. I think that I'm quite optimistic, and I think, well, okay, looking at my own experience at Rosemont, but also speaking with yacht owners, sales brokers, private bankers, yachting professionals, I think all were fearing that 2020 will be a horrible year, and at the end, I think that at the end it has been a good year. And actually, if you speak with several big brokerage houses, you can hear that even some of them said that 2021 could be even a record year for sales, which this was, I mean, it's important. I mean, we never would have thought about that. So, and all of us actually confirmed that we are all ultra busy with sales, whether it's sales, acquisitions, or new builds. And if they sell, it's not to get rid of the boats and said, okay, it's over, it's finished, it's done, but it's either to buy a bigger one or to build a new one, which is, I think it's very positive. Then it's true that on the chartering side, it has been, I think, more difficult, especially beginning of the season last year. But he's been a good towards the end of the season, especially for Croatia, which has been a record year. But I think now we've got the vaccination campaign, which is accelerating, not going too fast as we would have liked to, but still going on. The borders are slowly opening. I think by the end of June, it will be open. As Miguel, Ezio, and Jean-Philippe said, people get used to the COVID clauses and to be more flexible. So owners and charterers now are not reluctant to sign charter agreements, which include as well these COVID clauses. So I think this last 2 weeks we have been signing with my team, I don't know how many charter contracts, which all that is ultra positive. So I think, yeah, definitely I'm positive, and I think the market is also going in the right direction. Now we have to wait and see what will happen in September. Perhaps, you know, everything will shut down again and everybody back home. But at least this is it. I also think that there's a shifting in the way things are done. For instance, now I'm working on a transaction. The buyer is in Australia. He has not been able to join the boat, not be able to look at the boat, to visit the boat, but everything is organized remotely, video tours. Then you've got Northrop and Johnson, for instance, that making crazy videos. So I think we'll probably start to approach what has started within the real estate a few years ago, and have more sales and transactions also going completely remotely with the video tours. So I think, yeah, we'll see some changes, and also I think we'll see some changes with the events, but probably we'll touch on that a bit later with the Monaco Yacht Show and the event and what's going on. But I think, yes, I'm positive. I think the industry is positive, but we'll probably be seeing some changes in the way we do things, which will be probably more flexible.
Which is all positive.
It's positive.
Also, yes, definitely. And I mean, considering that also the industry is run by professionals, in the sense that we are dealing with shipyards, brokers, service providers who know the industry inside out, and who are used to dealing with unexpected situations. I'm not surprised that there has been, you know, this willingness to always find a solution, essentially, to whatever situation arises. So that's really good.
But I confirm that definitely the appetite is really out there. I mean, all of us, I think we have been completely, it has been crazy the last week and months with sales, charter licenses. I've been doing charter licenses in Spain, in Greece, Jennifer, with imports. Yeah, so it's good signs.
Yes. Jennifer, would you like to comment?
No, I agree with what everyone said. It's exactly the same in Greece. On the sales side, we're busy, we're seeing movement. I think it's also a lot of what Miguel said, the psychology that, you know, we're not here forever and let's just get on with it. From the office and the various departments, I can see it in the retail charters. People are busy booking, obviously, again, on the charter licenses, particularly since they blocked Turkey and Albania. So it's either gets a charter license or spend 2 days coming from Italy. Other than that, the big difference, I think, from last year is that we have lots of charters which have been rescheduled for this summer. So already we're starting the season sort of in a good position, to the point that you can't find, I mean, exactly what you're looking for at times. And also the fact that key markets, we've got the Middle East, most of the key countries of the Middle East, Russia and America able to come, Britain, Israel. There's a big tie right now with Greece and Israel. That was the first announcements we had on a sort of green pass vaccination. And since we have access to those charter clients, we're expecting a lot of movement this summer. So busy.
Great. Maya, I would think it's the same for you from what you've been telling us.
Well, luckily, yeah, I agree with everybody what they said. If I can just maybe add my opinion, I mean, I just recently read also about Australia. I think this COVID situation definitely even improved the yachting industry in the sense of demand for sales, because wealthy people are realizing that really being on a yacht is the most safe way of traveling. So now there is a big booming market in Australia as well, with the owners not being able to travel overseas. They're bringing yachts to Australia. In Croatia, I mean, mainly Croatian market is regarding sales smaller yachts market. People are complaining, brokers are complaining there is a shortage of yachts. If we're talking about the chartering, we can definitely see positive from last year compared to the last year when everything was still unknown, uncertain. I think now people are definitely more relaxed, let's say, about what the regulations are. It's more clear what is expected and what they need to do to come. Luckily, season already started. We have some charter clients already starting their trips here in Croatia. So yeah, things are definitely positive. We're a little bit joking. It seems like this year Croatia will be only full with American tourists because they keep announcing direct flights to Croatia, which is really positive considering that American Airlines canceled flights back in 2020. Now 2 carriers came up with the new ones. So yeah, we really hope everything stays positive, everybody pays attention to what they do, still keep responsible. And if I can just add the answer to one of the questions I've seen, one of the ladies asked about are the countries will be participating in vaccinating maybe the crew in each of our jurisdictions. I can just say for Croatia, at the moment, foreigners cannot still get vaccinated. There is a thought about it. So maybe during the summer season when the Croatian population gets vaccinated enough and we have some maybe extra, government is thinking about it, but at the moment, no. So that's from Croatia.
Okay. Miguel, I think you're the only one who we haven't addressed with regards to what is happening in Spain as regards activities and what you are seeing there.
Well, yes, no, it's. I have been hearing all the comments in the respective countries, and Spain is not an exception. So there are a lot of new build slots being caught. I agree with Ezio that with all the shipyards we have been in contact, we have not noticed any delays in deliveries, etc. I agree that 2021, surprisingly, who could have said that the 1st of January could be a record year, as Janet was pointing out before. So the industry and the business is going very well. There is still some uncertainty about the travel restrictions. We have already talked about that, but with the proper clauses in place, people are confident in signing the corresponding contracts. And when those contracts are in relation to the end of June or July, they are much more confident, relying in the vaccination campaigns that will be much more extended than now. They are more worried about the charters that could take place at the beginning of June, because we don't know exactly right now what the Commission will decide on the non-Schengen entries for non-essential trips. So there is a huge uncertainty with those kind of clients, which are a very relevant part of the market. But in general, the ambient is absolutely optimistic and much more than we could expect at this stage in the year, for sure.
Great. I think everyone's going to be very happy following this webinar because we've been beacons of positivity. Lorna, any questions at this point before we go to the final couple of minutes?
Yeah, we have got a couple of questions. Actually, just following on from the positivity there, we've got a comment from Norma Trees, and she says yachting in the US, including charter, is incredibly busy. So good news from the other side of the pond there. A little bit more complicated, she says, in the Caribbean. I have got a question that I know Fiona Moresso is very keen to put to Ezio. She just wants some clarification here. So hi, Fiona. Ezio, can you confirm that the COVID tested flights between the USA and Italy are no longer subject to essential reasons, and that charter clients will be able to take advantage of these flights to come to Italy and join their yachts without quarantine? So the key part of the question here is about essential.
Yes, absolutely. I confirm you that is not only for professional people, but also is also for tourists, and therefore for guests that should reach, for example, in Italy, a yacht for charter. Yes, absolutely. It's only necessary to check that is a COVID tested flight. Only this.
Excellent. Thanks, Ezio. Fiona, I hope that answers your question. And Emma Thompson, I know that somebody's already touched upon this, but are there any plans locally to assist with the vaccination of crew on board vessels in your respective countries? So this is a question about on-board vaccination of crew in different jurisdictions. So I don't know if any of the panelists have got thoughts about that.
Yes, Miguel.
Vaccination on board, for my point of view, this is not mandatory, because at the moment in which the yacht enter in the EU country, should already have a vaccination on board. If we are talking about the guests that reach the vessel, this is not mandatory, because the PCR has been already done before entering Italy or in the EU country, and eventually is only a quick test that maybe is inside the compliance of the vessel and of the captain for the charter. But this is not necessary, in my opinion, to arrange a PCR test on board.
Anybody else? Maybe Miguel? Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yes, just one comment. In Spain, as the PCR must be prior to 72 hours on arrival, if for whatever reason a yacht coming from a third country outside the customs territory from a long trip in international waters and could not have a test within these 72 hours, there is a service that goes to the yacht to make the PCR test, but obviously the charters or the persons who have not still the positive, well, the negative PCR test cannot go down to land until they receive the results, which is absolutely logically. But they have thought about that, and it is a service in place from the public health in Spain. So this is positive also.
It's exactly the same in Monaco. There's a COVID center. You call the COVID center. It comes, you do the COVID test on board, and you stay on board, whether crew or passengers, exactly as Miguel explained. And you have to stay though on board until you receive a negative PCR result.
Excellent. I think the question was also whether or not the crew could be vaccinated on board. Was that also the side of the question?
That's
because
right.
If that's the case, for example, in France, the access is not dependent on nationality or place of residence. It's open to everyone as long as you're eligible on the basis of age conditions. So you can just show up and get vaccinated as long as you can get a meeting with a doctor or go to a vaccine testing center. It's considered as a public order imperative of public health provisions, so anyone can get vaccinated in France.
So even a person who is not
doses.
national or resident or
no,
anyone can turn up.
No, normally they would have opened it to anyone that was a regular resident in France, as in legally regular residents, so even foreigners. But they also indicated that people who are not affiliated with French Social Security, for example, if they don't work or if they are illegally present in France, could also have access to the vaccines, as long as they meet the requirements of age, which now is in France that anyone above 18 can get vaccinated at any time.
In Monaco, for now, I think that around 35, which is quite low, 35 to 40% of the population has been vaccinated. But for now, it's just for Monaco residents over 45 years, I think. it will be soon open to people who work in Monaco, and maybe at that time it will be extended to crew members who are on board a yacht which is usually berthed in Monaco, but this is just supposition.
Excellent. Well, look, Alison, I think we've come to the end of our time now, so I don't know if you just want to say a couple of words to round up.
Yes, yes, Janet, go.
Yes, the Monaco Yacht Show will happen. I saw the question. Yes, it will happen,
yes.
22 to 25th of September.
Fantastic.
Yes, I think everyone is raring to go and dying to come and see you in Monaco, Janet, and visit the boat show. I know there are a couple of other events before then because it's still a while away. So we'll see how it goes. I'm very curious to see how we're going to move into our new normality. But of course, all the vaccination programs are going to have a big effect, and we all depend on each other in the sense of how all member states are doing complexively to be able to then come together in our very social environment and very social business. Maya, go.
I'm sorry, I just see the question here related to travel of US citizens to Greece and Croatia, if they only can travel by private plane. No, I mean, there's no decree that says that it has to be by private plane. It will depend on airline company, but so far last year, people who wanted to travel commercially, there were flights come regularly. I have to be, okay, well, there are Croatian nationalities, but they travel on US passport as well. People who travel, they are transiting through other airports in EU, so they should be allowed to go by commercial flights as well, as long as they have a negative PCR test. But as mentioned before, there are going to be direct flights to Dubrovnik starting in July from New York
That's the same
and LA.
for Greece. Exactly
Okay.
the same. The Americans can travel commercially privately in their direct flights, and they've also increased flights to Greece, so it's all good.
Okay, I think now we really have to close up
We
because
really
Lorna's
are, yeah,
she's
out
going
of
to
time.
just shut us all down.
Yeah.
So,
Well, look,
so
thank you.
you.
I'm glad that we can end on a positive note anyway. And I think everyone out there in the audience from the reactions I've seen is very excited about the Monaco Yacht Show going ahead, as are we. So thank you very much, Alison. Thank you very much to our distinguished panel here. Thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. Bear with us while we obtain permission to send out the recordings to all of you that'd like to have a copy of that. Let us know if you've got any suggestions or comments for future events, either webinars or in-person events, or if you'd like more information about participating as a speaker or sponsor at future Keynote events. We hope to see you all again soon, maybe in person, who knows. Look forward to it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Lorna. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Take
Bye.
care.
All the best
Bye.
to all. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.